You may know the band Eiffel 65 for their hits Move Your Body or Too Much of Heaven. They're an Italian Eurodance group, and they have maybe 3 hits in America. The 2 aforementioned songs, and I'm Blue. If you've heard this song, you probably recognize it for its catchy beat and mostly gibberish lyrics. The song came out in America in 1999, so if you're older than 15, you may have heard it. Chances are, though, that you haven't heard the story behind the song. In their recent biography, Eiffel 65 reveals the truth. Originally, there were 4 members in Eiffel 65: Jeffrey J., Raimondo Sanguini, Maurizio Labina, and Gabri Ponte. After a few unsuccessful one-hit blunders, the 4 of them decided to seek inspiration serving as missionaries with their church. Soon they were off to the heart of Africa to build irrigation systems for landlocked villages. None of them were really built for physical labor, but the word of God had brought them down there, and they could do work. Construction was rather boring, despite being short-staffed. The water systems came with enough instructions that the pipes fit together within a few weeks, saving the local farms and winning over the hearts of the villagers. Out of all the volunteers, the 4 bandmates were selected by the villagers to celebrate that night. A grand feast was to be prepared for them. Sick of the MREs shipped them with some rusty American warehouse, they gladly accepted. That night, Jeffrey, Raimondo, Maurizio, and Gabri entered the village and were greeted by a long table at the edge of a large circle, with a massive bonfire in the center. The 4 sat down, and immediately one of the villagers emerged from a hut nearby, carrying a goat and bringing it to the bonfire. The 4 had lived in the area long enough that what came next didn't shock them, but Raimondo was still squeamish. The villagers skewered the goat on a stick and roasted it over the bonfire, letting the animal's hair burn away as its flesh boiled. After what seemed like an eternity, the chef removed the carcass from the fire and began hacking away at it. Every so often he would cut an artery, and hot blood would spurt out onto the dirt, sizzling as it continued to boil. The 4 choice cuts went to the band, and the chef continued to serve the goat to the rest of the gathered villagers. The band, more hungry than disgusted, began digging into the freshly roasted goat, but Raimondo was still disturbed by the goat's fate, and only managed to swallow 3 bites before his bandmates had finished their portions, not wanting to offend his generous hosts. Raimondo split his portion amongst his 3 bandmates, and they quickly finished off the leftovers. The villagers, having finished their main courses as well, began dancing in a circle around the bonfire. The villagers' shadows danced as much as they did. In the time with the flickering of the flames, the sun had set by this point, leaving the flame as the last sort of light for miles. As the dancing continued, one of the villagers not entranced by the flame emerged from her hut, carrying a second course for the band. In the dim light, it looked like a wonderful pile of pulled pork, which the band was eager to consume. However, having eaten most of Raimondo's portion of the goat, the 3 band members were already stuffed, and so offered the lion's share of meat to Rai. He heartily gulped down the familiar food and was soon satiated. Satisfaction was not to last. Soon Rai rose from the table and joined the villagers in the dance. What had once been an unfollowably flurry of hands and feet became child's play as he matched the motions of his neighbors flawlessly. Entranced by the dance, Rai began chanting, "I'm blue, dubba-dee dubba-die, dubba-dee dubba-die, dubba-dee dubba-die." Rai's bandmates knew this was the inspiration that we were looking for, so they wrote down Rye's burst of musical inspiration and continued to watch him dance. His motions quickened, much faster than the rest of the circle, until Rye dropped his hands and stood motionless, continuing to chant. The circle closed around him, and the band lost sight of Rye for a moment, until they saw him run forward and leap face first into the fire, still chanting. The three of them tried to break through the circle to save their friend, but every step they tried to get through was blocked by a well-placed dance step. All they could do was watch as their friend burned on the pyre, chanting his haunting refrain until his lungs were no more. The band ran far off into the darkness, until they came across the volunteer camp they had been staying at. They didn't speak a word of what had happened to any of the other volunteers. And when dawn broke, the band left for the airport to return to Italy. The three of them managed to compensate for Raimondo's musical talent and produce the album Europop. Most of the songs were lackluster, but Blue made it to American shores and was an instant hit. The band made millions off of that album, but not without the cost. The band, as a tribute, used Raimondo's final chant as most of the lyrics in Blue. The murder rate doubled in Italy that year, with most of the victims never being found. At least, not in their entirety. Of the victims that were located, most were incomplete torsos, with most of their flesh eaten off, as if by savage animals. No forensic tests were able to identify what sort of animal consumed these people, nor were they able to find the rest of the victims. It wasn't until years later that a researcher made the connection between Blue's release and the mysterious deaths. By reversing the lyrics, the researcher discovered Raimondo's secret message. Hide the body, eat the body. Hide the body, eat the body.